Hi, this is Derek Murphy of Creativity.com. I'm making this video to talk about your book blurb. Your blurb is the description. I've heard people say a review is kind of a blurb, like you can get someone else to blurb your book, and that's usually the little review that goes on the back. But it's also something that we use to refer to the sales description that goes on your Amazon page or the back cover. So there's two important things that I'm going to talk about in this video about blurbs, and it's based on two questions that I got today. The first is that and this is something I talk a lot about, which is just using keywords in your sales description. So someone asked a question about keywords. Basically, when you're describing your book, people sometimes say, this book is for fans of, and then a couple best-selling authors or a couple best-selling books, or readers who love these best-selling books will like this. And they were asking if that's okay or not okay. Two things. One, yes, I think you should do it. The main reason is that you're giving readers an easy thing to hold on to for positioning. So if they're just reading your description, it's hard for them to place your book and figure out exactly where to where to put it, like in their brain. So if you give them something to hold on to, if you associate it with other books or other authors that they're familiar with, that's a really easy trick for them to get what the book is about. And that's why it's important. So it's important for positioning, but also it's important for when people are searching for those books with keywords, you want your book to show up. So it's good for visibility and it's good for positioning, which will lead to better conversion. How do you find those keywords? I've been using a tool called KDP Rocket, but another kind of cool trick is that you can use Amazon ads and make a big list of keywords, maybe like 100 keywords, which can include other authors in your genre or other books. And then you'll find out, because once Amazon starts showing your ads, it'll show you which keywords get the most searches and which ones are converting the best for your book. So you can do that and find 2 or 3 author names that are really converting well and use those in your sales description. More people are going to be searching for it, and it might help your conversion. The dangerous part is you will be setting up reader expectation to a certain extent, and if your new reader expectation isn't fulfilled the right way, it can lead to negative reviews. So if I say my book is like J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter, and it's totally not, readers who thought that they were looking for a Harry Potter experience will be disappointed by my book because it's not a good fit, actually. So even if it helps get more sales, it might be dangerous if it doesn't get the right kind of reviews or if it isn't attracting the right kind of readers. There is an argument to be made that getting more visibility and more sales is more important than attracting the right readers, because at least you'll have a wide funnel and you get a lot of people in. And also, if you get a few negative reviews, basically, if they like the book, they're not going to go back and argue with the description and say, well, I thought I was getting a Harry Potter read and I didn't, so I'm disappointed, as long as they like the book. But if you're attracting the wrong readers and they don't like the book because they're expecting something else, that's a problem. So when you say things like, this is Hunger Games meets The Fifth Element meets a bunch of other stuff, and it's not exactly true, or you don't fulfill that promise, or your book isn't as good a quality as you led people to expect, that can actually hurt you. So it's a little risky, but then it's better to get seen than to be completely invisible, because if you're invisible, it doesn't matter what your book is about or what you're doing, because you're not getting anyone to read the book. So I would usually include things like that. The other question that came up was, someone asked me for feedback on their blurb. And it was fine, but it was kind of generic. So it was a sci-fi space odyssey, and it was nothing wrong with it. It's a well-written blurb, but it basically describes the setting and the main conflict in a way that it really could fit any space odyssey. It's about a guy who has to fight aliens and other worlds. The main problem was that there was no hook. It's really important. There's a hook at the beginning of the blurb that captures attention. So if you start off with like 1,000 years ago, blah, 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 backstory, that's not going to hook very well. You need to start with immediacy and presence, maybe violence or danger or just something interesting at the very beginning that hooks their attention. Once you have their attention, you can get more into it. But if you don't hook them in the beginning, they're not going to read the blurb. But the other thing I pointed out to him, a couple things. One, all story is character driven. So if you mention the character, but you don't describe why the character matters or how the character is connected to the plot or how this is personal for the character, then people people can't get hooked into the plot unless they feel sympathy for the character. That's really hard to do in a blurb, but at least if you add a little bit about the character to make them interesting or unique so that people can picture them. Maybe not a description, but a couple words. So then the last thing that I was going to mention, which I told my friend, was that if you have a big description that describes what happens, you may not be thinking in scenes. And the problem is readers visualize in scenes. So if you don't have anything for them to visualize, they're going to read the description and they'll go away with nothing in their head because they didn't see anything. So it's really important for you to make them see something. You can refer to a couple of the big scenes. I always have really epic scenes in my stories. So there's a falling down monastery on top of a mountain. There's castles and mansions. There's big holes in the ground. There's like very visual, very big things that they can picture. I don't always put those in my blurbs, but I'll try to, at least like if it's set in Ireland, I'll say, Ireland, castle, cliffs. That's enough for them to picture where the story takes place. And the important thing with scenes is that you're trying to get them to feel the thing that you want your book to fulfill on. So my book is kind of a like tragic romance fantasy. I want them to see those places that trigger those emotions in them so they know what to expect from my book. So recapping really quickly, a few things with your blurb. You want to have some keywords and do some research. You want to make your characters a little more interesting, a little more believable. You have to find a way to make your blurb more unique and stand out. So you have to think about your unique selling proposition, or what you have to offer that's new. You want to make sure you're attracting readers who like the genre, so it's not all new. You want to make sure you hit the tropes so that they know what to expect. You want to focus a little bit more on characters and relationships. If it's just one character against nature or something, or discovering themselves, that's not story. So a lot of story is what's the conflict and why does this matter to the character? Why is this character really committed to this quest? Why is it necessary for them? Why does it matter? It's hard to do in the blurb, but you want to do the best you can. And then finally, you want to be thinking in scenes. You want to at least give them some very visual thing for them to picture in their head that really stands out. One of the new scenes, I do this, like my novels are very visual, so the scene in the story that I'm working on right now, she comes down, she's been on this quest to find this special key or these people that can help her to get to the next version, and then one of her friends, who's a little 9-year-old girl, was actually possessed by her antagonist and snuck in late at night and killed the people that she was supposed to be getting wisdom from. So my scene is kind of this 9-year-old girl dripping in blood and pulling the flesh off the bones of these wise old ladies and feeding it to the dogs. My scenes are kind of graphic and violent, but having a couple scenes like that in my books, they really stick out, even though they're a little bit too dark or a little too violent. That's one of the reasons when people get done reading my books, they feel like they've gone through, not a traumatic experience, but they've gone through something very gripping. If nothing else, it holds their attention. That can only be done, like the violence, it doesn't matter if you don't have a good plot. It doesn't matter if the characters aren't invested and the readers don't sympathize with the characters, or if it's not a twist. But if it's done right, if it's surprising, if you can get them to see big scenes in their heads, that's definitely going to help a lot with your fiction. I'm going to stop this video here. I kind of got a little off track talking about fiction. Thanks, bye-bye.